We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Thank you for joining today. Welcome to Self-Driving Network Start Here, announcing general availability of Central. I'm Ram Anilgelli, a Customer Success Manager for HPE Aruba Networking Central, and I'll be your host for today's session. And I drive strategic customer and partner engagement across APAC and focused on customer success enablement. I'm pleased to join by three leaders from our product and solution team: Seelan Manawalan, Vice President of Product; Miles Davis, Vice President of Solutions; and Jiad Haji, Senior Manager of Product. We are excited to share with this milestone means for you and how it sets the foundation for more autonomous and intelligent networking. With that, let's get started. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Rama. Let's just get started with the next slide. Um, good morning, good afternoon. This is a fantastic day to have a session like this. Uh, why? Because we are very, very proud to announce the general availability of our new HPE Aruba Networking Central. For those of you who have been seeing Central for many, many months, as new Central is now become the Central. And we are on the start of an exciting journey with this. The announcement here is more about talking what is there, how exciting these capabilities are, how to actually use them, but also some basic stuff as to what is exactly out there. Uh, the way we call general availability is that we have now Central available for all the 200 plus thousand customers across 22 plus clusters uh, for all the features that are published. So example, all configs, all monitoring, everything is available to all our customers. The second thing that you would also notice is we are turning on everything. As I said, uh, the full stack monitoring, all of AI ops, and even the day zero and day one configuration elements are available to everybody. Now, we have been actually in the journey of configurations where you would see us kind of having 100% of what AOS-10 wireless could do. You can configure them in Central. We also have CX configuration by and large 80-90% complete. That is available to you. We have a majority of AOS-S configuration available to you. The IAP8 SD branch and some of the intent-based net connector-based workflows are still yet to come, and we are hoping to actually get all of these released in the next 3 months. But the bigger difference and the big news about this new central is you've noticed this. This is we are continuously upgrading the clusters for brand new features every month. That basically means you do not see any longer the downtimes and maintenance windows. We are hitless. We will just pack in features after features every month, and this is the speed at which we work. In the next slide, I want to kind of set the stage for my co-presenters, where they will be actually talking about what is there in the central. But what you notice is industries first, and I really mean it is industries first. Copilot for networking. This is where we're bringing the agentic AI mesh. You've heard a lot of other vendors talk about in PowerPoints. We have that real in system. This is available with the advanced license, but please reach out to us in case if you need your customers to try eval. We are very happy to actually offer evals up to 90 days. This is a path-breaking journey for us where we lead with Copilot, which leads also to our future of self-driving networks. And you'll hear a lot of self-driving networks in the next few minutes, so I'll keep it for the next few speakers. But more importantly, if you want to know what is the other thing that's exciting about this central, is we have a very, very solid monitoring, reporting, troubleshooting workflow, very intuitive workflows that actually bring in a lot of data together. AI is kind of spread everywhere. We use AI extensively to help remediate root cause analysis and troubleshooting. Besides that, we also are actually having one of the only unique hierarchical configurations in the industry. This is very special because this also fulfills a long-standing ask from many of you. of how we take our AOS 8 customers in wireless into Central. We have now that similar hierarchical capabilities in Central. But more importantly, we have something special for switch customers where you can now configure different kinds of ports and interfaces across hundreds and thousands of ports in one very flexible hierarchical way. So with this, I actually want to pause and hand it back to Miles Davis, who is going to be my partner in journey here. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Seelan. Well, as Seelan mentioned, we are really excited about what we've done in the GA of Central. It's part of a bigger story that we have in terms of moving to self-driving networks. Now, if there's one thing that you know about running a network, it's that an up network is not the same as a good network. And that's one of the kind of core values and core visions that we had as we came together as an Aruba and Juniper company. Speaking of that, one of the visions, next slide, please, that we had, one of the one team kind of one drive things that we had was drive exceptional user experience with self-driving networks. Now, a lot of people look at something like self-driving and they say, is that possible? Next slide, please. Self-driving is real. This is something in which we are doing in our customer base as it exists today. We've got large amusement parks, large outdoor facilities in which have kind of a mix of the need to host guests as well as the need to be able to operate OT. And being able to simplify down their ACLs and automate some of that process was huge for them. Whether it's Home Depot and their ability to roll out all of these handheld phones that they have for the associates on the floor, or whether it's Henkel and their ability to reduce their network deployments by 90%, or Texas A&M. The list goes on, but the net of it is that these customers today you see on the slide and many other are experiencing the kind of first iterations of what we would call self-driving network. Now, again, this view of self-driving network is something that we share across the entire HPE networking world. And ultimately, one of the things that we're most excited about is that while we've got all of these specs that we bring to the table, we also now have the two powerhouses in the Gartner MQ in the top right. Now, if you're looking for one of the core competitors that we have in the space, don't look in the top right. Please look in the top left. That is where the core competitor has fallen down to. So ultimately, we are really excited about being the number one and number two in the quadrant, and really excited about coming together as a dual powerhouse. The other thing, as we kind of discovered coming together as a dual powerhouse, is that we had similar kind of ways in which we approached the development of our product. We were both working towards a world of agentic AI. We were both working towards or based upon a world of microservices and continuing those investments in building that to get to a self-driving network. These investments that both teams made in what we ended up doing in agentic AI and the world of AI in general, as well as our investments in creating containerized services and generally building things in a cloud native way, were something that really led us to accelerate to what we see on the next slide, which is starting to be able to cross-pollinate, as we call it, these features between the different platforms. At Discover Barcelona, some of the things that we announced was actually the LEM modules coming over from the world of Mist, as well as Marvis Actions coming over from the world of Mist later this year. These are really exciting opportunities in which, with very little time, we were able to turn on these features within the central cloud. Now, it doesn't just go one direction. Down below, the Mist team loved what we were doing in AI client profiling so much, and loved what we were doing, and we call the global knock pages, but they would call organizational insights so much that we took it over to that side. Now, the big thing is, the thing that kind of connects all of this is the agentic AI framework. On the Mist side, they had something that they called the Marvis conversational interface, and they saw what we had done as part of our launch of Copilot that we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second, with the agentic framework to combine that into a unified approach in which we use the agentic AI that we built in Central Copilot consistently across both platforms. This is something really exciting for you as customers and potential customers, because ultimately what it means is that you get more innovation even faster. I think that's really cool. Next slide, please. Now, the journey to self-driving, if you look at how kind of the world of cars operates, is that we started early on in the world of cars with sensors, and then we started to do lightweight driver assistance, things like, standard cruise control and maybe the predictive braking and that type of thing. Then we got into a world of adaptive cruise control, controlled self-driving, and ultimately, we're starting to just see the precipice of full self-driving coming into the world. Networks have a very similar kind of staging in which they go through in terms of getting to self-driving. It's all about getting that telemetry or getting those sensors in the network to be able to understand it, starting to apply some of the data or some of the AI and tools to be able to create insights out of that, and then using those insights to build recommendations. And now most of the world is in this kind of world of assisted, but really we've pushed past that into the world of agentic AI and even into some use cases in self-driving. This is what we think is so exciting about being in the networking space right now, is that we are in a massive shift from going from networks of yesteryear into something in which is truly, truly different. Next slide, please. One of those core differentiations, one of those core kind of capabilities that we are so excited about is Central Copilot, which uses the agentic framework that I was mentioning earlier. The way it works is the following. Within Central, for a long time, we've been developing AI tools, both in the kind of alerting space as well as the insight space, to be able to really understand different portions of how the network is working. So say, for example, if you look at the box on the top left of the area that says specialized AI agents, it says device and clients. There in that device and clients box, ultimately what you're seeing is a set of AI that's really good at understanding how clients operate on the network. It understands roaming parameters. It understands the difference between an IoT device and a device that has a human behind it. Now, that particular agent is very good at that particular skill. The other, as we move to the right, you see the configuration and topology agent. This agent is very good at understanding how network infrastructure is interconnected, the difference between something like two switches connected together with two links that are running spanning tree versus running LACP versus running ECMP, right? Ultimately, combining all of these different agents, I could keep going and keep going. Individually, they have some horsepower associated to them, but when it gets really special is as we move to the left and we go to this, what we're calling here on the slide, autonomous multi-agent orchestrator. I like to call this the reasoning engine. Ultimately, the reasoning engine is responsible for talking southbound to each one of these agents that I talked about, coordinating with that device and clients agent, understanding how to use it to be able to answer questions and do other things that we'll talk about here in a second. Ultimately, you need a really solid understanding of everything from the device and clients to the topology to the applications that are running over the network to be able to solve a holistic problem. And this reasoning agent is able to understand what it needs to dip into to be able to solve problems overall. As we build it one stage out, how do we then interact with this reasoning agent? Well, we interact with it through a tool that we call Copilot. Copilot is what Seelan mentioned before. First on the market capability to be able to request to your network anything to your heart's desire. Ultimately, the Copilot combined with the reasoning agent can go churn through a problem, something to the effect of, I'd like to understand what new IoT devices I have on my network and what applications are they using. It's able to break down that problem from the human, use the reasoning agent to understand which individual agent it needs to dive into, and then bring that summary back up to the user. This is really, really powerful stuff, and we're so excited to be able to roll this out into production clusters. Next slide, please. Now, ultimately, as we go into the demo here, you're going to see some really strong differentiation. I'd like to draw your attention to kind of 4 or 5, if you want to consider it that way, key differentiators that we think are really, really strong in our platform. Number one, what we call always on global zero trust security. This is really what I call the DNA of what Aruba came from. Aruba came into the market with an assumption that for people to be able to adopt wireless, it needed to be secure. And we've built upon that kind of initial statement from the very early days to build out now an extremely robust infrastructure that includes authentication, deeply profile those devices on the network, the ability to be able to enforce without having to worry about IP addresses, VLANs, all of that mess, and generally all around a built-in and not bolted on security solution for your network. The second pillar is all about that depth of being able to get the information out of the network that you need. And with the telemetry that we have coming off the APs, the switches, and the gateways, combined with the horsepower that Central does to be able to slice and dice all of that data, our client and network visibility is second to none in the market. This is really exciting for administrators that get in and check it out once they understand how much information they have at their fingertips. The third pillar we talked about a little bit already, but it's not just about the Copilot and the agentic AI. AI is weaved throughout what Central does. We've built it into the way that Central understands clients. We've built it into tools that help you understand how you could save energy within your organization. We've built it into tools that quickly identify exactly where a problem is and even give prescriptive answers to the administrator to go solve the next thing. These are things in which are far and ahead of where our competitors are. And then finally, microservices. Microservices is not just about the way it's built, but for you as a customer, what it means is it means that we have the portability to be able to deploy this in the cloud, in a virtual private cloud, or even on-prem. So if you're the type of customer that has the necessity to be able to run this in an environment that is of your own, whether that's due to data sovereignty, security, or anything else, we've thought about that from the beginning and built Central specifically to be available for those type of environments. Now, ultimately, all of this is underpinned by a strong foundation of making sure that it's all built on open APIs that can be used by you, and make sure that we can play in multi-vendor environments, because we're not the only player in your network. We are so excited about all of the different customers that we support, and we're so excited about what you are going to be able to do with Central. So without further ado, let's hand it over to what I personally think will be the most exciting part of this webinar, hosted by Ziad here, where we'll go through the demo. Ziad, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mal, and thank you everyone for joining this session today. My name is Ziad. I'm going to take you through everything, all the really cool stuff that we are now capable with Central. As you'll notice on your screen, this is going to be the default landing page when you log into Central. So what this means is you'll see a banner that says every Central customer is now going to be experiencing the latest and greatest and AI native self-driving platform that's going to simplify and essentially give you more time to do high value tasks in your network. So I want to show you some of the key ways that customers are already using this platform today. One of the first things and one of the most common questions we get from customers is, people navigate to such platforms when there's potentially an issue on the network, especially when there's a VIP, when there's a user or a client issue on the network. One of the ways that I like using the platform, because I'm familiar with it, is I like using our real-time alerts engine. So Miles said every component within Central leverages AI. It is not just associated with one or two features, but let me show you how I would troubleshoot a network using alerts. So here I can see both the top-down view, which is what are the most persistent things happening in my network. And you can see 38 of my clients in my networks are experiencing some DHCP discovered timeouts. But what if I want to see the inverse? What if I want to find that needle in a haystack How do I get that information? So I can sort this out also. And instead of getting the top down view, I can get a bottom up view. And I can see I have some client issues, some WAN issues, some wireless issues that are associated with single sites, singular clients as well. Now, what if I'm not as well versed with the platform, right? A few of you are going to be looking at this platform for the first time. How does that work with Central? So this is going to be unlike any other demo that you've experienced with similar platforms, because we're not going to spend our time navigating through different screens. We're going to use the natural language processing capabilities of the platform. So we do as little as exploring the platform in real time and going through every component step by step. So we're talking about customers that have issues with clients. Why don't I just ask Central? Even before we get to advanced features like agentic AI, you can, and you've had the ability to converse with your Central platform for a few years now. So I could just ask it things like, show me the top client issues in my network. And what Central's going to do now is it's going to go through all my sites. Think globally, all my sites that have any potential issues. And because I've put the keyword client in there, these are my users. It's going to only find issues that are affecting endpoints and users in my network. And in many cases, like in this case, I want to troubleshoot for one specific site. I know where my VIP is. I want to make sure they have an amazing experience. So you can sort this by different sites, and you can see what are the most persistent, the dominant issues happening in this particular location. So let's troubleshoot this a little bit further, right? At this point, what we see a lot of network admin teams do is essentially they start collecting information. They have to dig through data, analyze that data. If they're lucky, they'll get platforms where they'll start looking for patterns of behavior. You don't have to do any of those things with Central. As you'll see, some of these issues are happening many, many times. We've had this particular issue happen 50 plus times. Some of them have happened hundreds of times. But notice how Central is really just telling you, hey, there are 61 things, out of which only 13 are high priority. So going from hundreds of the same pattern of behavior happening again and again to really just 13 things that you want to click into and dive deeper in. So if there is an issue that I want to investigate, if you click on it, at this point, a network admin will have to manually figure out who is this affecting? What is the impact radius? What is the blast radius of this particular issue? Then once they know that, once they figure out if it's a client issue or a server issue or an app issue, they would start troubleshooting to figure that out, right? They'd see if, for example, for a DHCP issue, is this external service reachable? Are other people able to work with the service? Are they getting an IP address in this example? What self-driving means to us is not just bringing the latest and greatest from the world of AI. We also want to make sure that all the steps that a network admin would do to bring and troubleshoot an issue or configure the network, we bring with as few clicks as possible, so you have it in the same place. So in this case, self-driving for us means without you having to navigate to a third place, you can see that we have two clients that did not receive a DHCP Discover broadcast packet. You don't have to figure out the impact radius. We will tell you that there are two clients affected, and both of them are happening on the same AP. So maybe the AP is a suspect. But what is the first thing a network admin would do in this case, right? Manually see if this DHCP server is reachable. Manually see if other people are able to get an IP address from that same VLAN, from that DHCP server. We will do all those things automatically for you. We have orchestrated root cause recipes. In this case, we've pinged the DHCP server, it's reachable. But you see, we try to see who else is getting an IP allocation from that same VLAN where we have clients experiencing and not getting a response. And that test did not pass. Along with all the impact radius, the troubleshooting, and every single event that we're getting as native telemetry, we come up with a actions card. And the actions card is essentially us using an LLM, learning from our best practices across the globe, and bringing that in so you can see for this particular issue, you can see what is the root cause, what is the root cause, what is the VLAN that's getting affected, the SSID that's getting affected, really bringing it down to that needle, finding that needle in a haystack and telling you what are the next few very prescriptive actions you can take to figure this exact issue out. So this is the first thing I wanted to show you, right? So you no longer need to essentially do a lot of data digging across multiple platforms. When you have a client issue, you can look for that needle in a haystack or look for the top massive top-down issues and investigate both ways. Now, the next question that we often have with customers when we speak to them is, if it is not a client issue, it's something upstream. It could be a network issue, but what's way harder to troubleshoot is, because we don't always manage it, are application issues. So what if I ask Central, instead of showing me the top client issues, can you show me the top app issues? And in this case, every single AP, all our enterprise switches, and all of our gateways support deep packet inspection, which means every single one of our devices is aware of more than 4,000 different applications. And this really starts building the base of the telemetry we need to perform the next use cases you will see in the demo today. Why is this important? Why do we keep talking about getting such level of visibility on our devices? I was recently speaking to a customer, and only 30,000 of their 125,000, right? So less than a quarter of their endpoints have agents installed on them. And this is a healthcare customer. Less than a quarter have agents installed on them. So the other three quarters, they need security, they need the telemetry built into the network so that they can provide the same experience whether you have an agent or you do not have an agent. In this case, you can see it's showing me the top applications. So this is all working without any agents. This is the network just pulling this telemetry through deep packet inspection. And I know where some users have potentially complained about application issues. I've seen it in Dallas in the past. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go navigate. We looked at a site in India before. We're going to go to the US for this one, and we're going to see all the applications. Notice how whenever we go into any site, I don't have to actually click on any particular client or network or application. Without any clicks, I know my network's good, my clients are happy, my applications are running smoothly, right? Without any second click, when a VIP, when your CISO, when your CIO calls and sees and asks you if there's an issue, you just have that information right off the top of your head without you clicking any further. But in this case, there's a particular app that I want to point your attention to. So notice how this is all working, as I said, natively. And for every application, we'll show you the application health. So if you click on it, we'll show you how long it takes for the client to reach its gateway on the local network, as well as the client to application latency. So this could be a cloud hosted application, and you can see where potential latency is being introduced. For every app, we will natively give you a reputation score, how much it's being consumed, is it allowed, and even geolocation details. But when you click on any single application, this is very differentiated as well. What if I wanted to see the inverse? Instead of a client view, I want to see an application view. What are the clients that are using a particular application? I have 3 clients using this. Across which network devices is this particular application running? You can see this level of information natively without you really having to dig deeper. Now, let's see who is actually consuming this information, this application, over the last 7 days. And if I start looking at the performance of this application, you'll see like I showed you a moment in time client to application and a moment in time client to gateway latency. But you can see there are peaks and valleys, and there's a very significant peak in latency that happened a few days ago, just yesterday. Now, this is the network's perspective. These are real users on our network that are consuming these applications. But I don't want to wait for 6 a.m. on a Monday to figure out that there's a potential issue, right? If there's an issue, 6 a.m. on a Monday really means people are going to start showing up to the office in a couple of hours, and there's going to be pandemonium. I want to figure this issue out Friday night, way before anything ever happens. So instead of me solely looking at networking telemetry, we want to see a real time experience of users, but we now converge that information with a digital twin experience when we are measuring every single application 24/7 without any users present on the network. So if you're familiar with UXI, this is one of our solutions that can be a synthetic sensor. This can be a hardware sensor. It could be a software sensor. It could be an agent on any one of your most popular endpoint devices like Mac OS, Android, Windows, you name it. And we'll start seeing, instead of that peak that happened yesterday at 6 a.m. on a Monday, right before people start showing up to the network, we'll see that this has actually been happening for many, many days, right? And it seems to happen at a certain time of day. It seems to happen at the early part of the day, and you get that telemetry from here. So I don't want to see this Monday morning, 6 a.m. You get this information through the weekend, even if no one's actively monitoring this specific application over the weekend, you get this information. So we pull this right in so you can measure both the network's perspective of what the real user experience is, but also a digital experience of people, even if they're not on the network. So I can start to see all the, not just the client potential issues, but also the application issues natively built in within the same platform. You don't need to navigate to a separate solution for this anymore. Now, I want to take a step back. One of the big things before we proceed and go further down our troubleshooting use cases is when people migrate from on-prem solutions or legacy cloud solutions to central, one of the first questions they ask us is, hey, we're a large university, we're a large environment, and one of the main reasons we've been using an on-prem solution or a legacy solution is cloud has always meant simplicity, but it never scaled to the feature set that we require as a large campus. Things like when we do configuration, we can't just push a golden config out to everything on our network. In the AOS-8 world, for example, we use things like hierarchy, right? Decide what happened for a specific geographic location. Or maybe we've seen use cases where people have pushed out a golden config for even just the guest space within a building and map that out to every guest space globally across their sites. We've seen retail customers push a very specific config only for a specific kiosk, and that kiosk should not have to get recreated every time they have a new retail location. That should apply to all kiosks today as well as tomorrow, as and when they show up on the network. So with Central, we now have that ability. We support configuration that does not just allow you to do this at a global level with one golden config and you're forced to push it down. You can decide to do configuration at a global level. You can do this at a site level. So these are physical locations, or even at the device level. And then optionally, you can group sites into site collections, which is really just, I have a few different sites in the US, and I can group them all up into a country called the US or East Coast retail locations. You decide what site collections means for you. So this is a vertical hierarchy. For those of you who are familiar with the AOS-8 world, it maps very nicely to the AOS-8 world. But we didn't just want to recreate what we had. We wanted to look for improvements. And that's why we've introduced a new concept called device groups. Device groups don't cut vertically, they cut horizontally. So like I mentioned, if I have a use case where all my kiosks in my retail locations, all my guest areas in my campuses need to have a specific SSID with specific configuration, I don't want to define this at a per building or a per retail location level. I can divide it in a device group, and only the lobby APs across all my campuses will get it. So this cuts horizontally. And when you decide and you configure something once, you can decide to push it either directly into your hierarchy or store it for later use in a library. So this is a repository that you can use in the future, and you can decide what to do with it. Another massive innovation that we've added is when you define something inside Central, you can decide to push it not just for your access points, but also for your switches and your gateways. So if I have something that is pretty common, right? So a system profile, maybe a DNS server profile, this is something that we expect a lot of different users to consume as well. So I can assign this to multiple different devices. I can decide this and assign this on gateways, but also all of my switches in this particular example, right? So you define it once and you can push this across multiple device types. You don't have to learn 3 different CLIs. You do not have to learn 3 different wizards for configuring your wired, wireless, and WAN. And when you do push this out, as I mentioned, you decide where do I want to push this out to at a global level, or maybe I just want to push this out to just my lobby APs across the globe. So I wanted to take a quick detour and talk about config because we know that this is a question that gets asked often. Is Central ready for config? The answer is yes. And is Central ready for your enterprise config as you move from an on-prem or a legacy cloud solution? The answer is again yes. You can bring all of those use cases into Central today. Now, we started this presentation with uh, talking about self-driving networks, and Miles and Seelan laid the groundwork for what is our vision, what is our North Star, which is self-driving networks, autonomous networks where the IT team can get time back and focus on big picture items, where we still guarantee that your customers and your users have the best in-class experience possible. So what if you ask me that, hey, we don't just want to look for issues. We don't want to just look for real-time alerts as and when they happen. We want to be proactive about each and every one of those issues. That is really the groundwork for self-driving networks. And the way we address that specific question is with insights. Now, insights are us using machine learning models to proactively find issues or proactively come up with recommendations on how to improve your network even further. And we group our insights into a few different categories. There are 5 different categories today: wireless, wired, security, application, and application experience as well. A lot of our customers start with wireless and then move out into wired and security. So that's the flow that I'm going to show you, right? As and when you deploy your network, from a configuration perspective, one of the biggest pain points that we have seen with customers is making sure that there is coverage and making sure there's that the network is designed for capacity. So one of the things that customers really really love with Central is our insight that uses a machine learning model to figure out if there are any coverage holes. This is much easier to do if you're an endpoint on the network. But with just the network telemetry, we can now figure out that, hey, there are certain coverage holes. Let's look at the floor plan view so you can visualize the physical space. And we can see there are 2 access points here where we are detecting a coverage hole. So what do we do about this? Right. So we've seen that there's spotty connectivity between these spaces. So Central will not just leave you high and dry and give you a problem without a solution. So we'll give you very prescriptive solutions. In this case, the answer, because we are config aware, the answer for one of the APs is very simple, relatively, is on AP4, we can just increase the minimum transmit power. It's set to 9 dBm right now. We can switch, bump it up to 12 dBm, and that is going to go a long way in, reducing the coverage, lack of coverage that we're seeing. But bumping up the transmit power in all cases does not always make sense. And that's what we're seeing with the first AP, where regardless of how much we increase the transmit power, it's just the site is not planned or designed well. In this case, adding APs is the best option because we're seeing 41 different clients are getting affected. Notice how with every single thing, we're giving you an impact analysis, a blast radius. If we do not fix this, what is the potential experience impact for end users? So in this case, we give you a very prescriptive recommendation. Add an AP in this space, ideally. And for the second region, the bottom left region in our floor plan, we can bump up the transmit power, the minimum transmit power, to get a slightly better experience over there. So that is more a first time setup, right? We've deployed a brand new network and there are issues with even the wireless design. We're going to help you all the way from the ground up as and when you move on into your network, where now let's fast forward, it's day 2 and users are coming onto the network. We don't want your users to create help desk tickets and complain about, hey, every time I walk between a lobby area or move from the elevator into my common space and go to my desk, I start seeing drops and I see failed roams. This is what this insight is delivering essentially. Instead of you having to figure that out, we have a machine learning model, a random forest classifier that look at all that telemetry that I showed you, and we're seeing these are real-time failed roams that are happening. We're seeing high roams. We're seeing not just again um, the issue that's happening, which is the roaming failure that's happening, but we'll also, because we are config aware, we're also starting to look at why is a particular issue happening. In this case, it says there's a PMK key failure. If you haven't seen that pop up before, you do not need to worry because again, Central is going to be very prescriptive with our recommendations. We're going to show you firstly, which APs are people experiencing a poor roam across? So we get that floor plan view. You can see this is the AP that we're seeing a lot of impact on, but we'll give you a very prescriptive action where we're saying that you can disable a relatively newer wireless feature, 802.11r, on this particular SSID, and it's going to help the roaming performance for 12 clients. Before we make this change, let's see which 12 clients we're talking about here. So if you click on view, it's going to show you which are the 12 clients that are experiencing poor roaming across my network. And you can see it's mostly devices that are fairly old, mostly these Zebra mobile computers. So these are scanners that are being used in this retail environment, and they're experiencing thousands and thousands of failed roaming events. Right. So this makes sense. I have a decade old device on my network. It does not support 11R, and disabling 11R is significantly going to improve the experience for these Zebra devices on my network. Again, this is without any user lodging a ticket, right? Creating a request for anyone to look into. The point of insights is how do we proactively figure out issues on your network or even improve your network without any ticket coming in. Miles also mentioned something that's really, really exciting, right? We're doing this call in the APAC and EMEA, but even globally, we see a lot of customers that are now becoming very energy efficient. So this insight gives you a way to really take all the assets that you've put in place, all your investments, and how do we bring them towards an energy efficient plan so that this complies with the rest of the organization. So this recommendation comes up with a plan on how do we enable power saving. So this model will start looking at how users interact with your network, how often they come in. Do they come in early in the day, leave during that 9 to 5, or in this case, on the weekdays, there's only a very small time when we don't see users on the network. But essentially, what this is going to show you is it's going to come up with a plan and recommend that there are certain times in the day where you can move certain APs, not all your APs, because we still have people like the cleaning crew. We have IT ops running pretty much 24/7 in most cases. So these APs can move to on demand, the purple ones. The blue ones can stay constantly on. So to make it simple, the purple ones go to sleep mode, the blue ones stay on. And what this is going to give you is essentially give you analyzed power savings of 22 kilowatt hours, right? So this is now proving value even beyond the IT and the networking domain. So I want to show you a couple of other really cool things. You expect Aruba to do really well in the wireless domain, but let's talk wired for a second, because this, no one just has wireless access points in isolation. They are connected to something upstream. So how do we experience and how do we measure the experience for wired endpoints on our networks? Now, this is really important because in this case, we're looking at, not just the basic network telemetry, but or a third-party service telemetry like a DHCP DNS. We're looking at actual client experience. And in this case, what I'm seeing is there are lots of clients that are experiencing high latency. So let's see why this is happening and who is this happening to. So we have some sensors here that we're seeing that they're wired. These are wired connections, and they're all pretty much getting impacted. And I can start to see, if I look at in the last 7 days, that the auth servers, right? So I can break this up. The auth server, when it does reach out to an external auth server, it's taking upwards of 2 minutes to get a response back. So there's a significant amount of latency till the auth server. But once it does get a response back, the DHCP server is relatively quick, right? It's responding back within a couple of seconds. So you can see not just the network's perspective, you can start to see latency hop by hop, right? At every state association authentication, DHCP DNS for wired connections as well. And I want to move to security. This has been one of the claim to fames for Aruba networking since its inception more than 20 years ago. And that's something we're bringing to the HPE world. All of our machine learning models are not just working for optimizing your network, but also securing your network inherently. Again, I mentioned I was recently speaking to a customer where 3/4 of their medical devices do not support agents, and that's where using your network as a security sensor is incredibly important. In this case, without you configuring anything, and this applies to pretty much everything you've seen in the demo so far, all of the features that I've shown you from a visibility perspective just work. You set up a single SSID and you will get this visibility. And let's talk about this use case. We have an IoT device that the system central is detecting an abnormal data download. So we've created a 30-day baseline. We've created a historical baseline. So what this IoT device has been doing in the past. And in the past, it's only ever downloaded 500 kilobytes. And its peers, so similar IoT devices, have only ever downloaded a meg and a half. But on this given date, we see a huge spike. And this is a log scale. So this spike is even more significant. And I can see that it's reaching out to a local destination. So east-west traffic, something your firewall would not see because it's not traversing, it's not going through your edge network. And I can see this IoT device is reaching out to another internal, it's a Windows 10 device on the other side. And it's now downloading, instead of kilobytes and megabytes, it's downloading 4.5 gigs. With every one of these insights, and I'm going to just show you one of these today, but with every one of these insights, we'll help you align with the security organization within your environment, and we'll show you how this maps to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So you can quickly see if this is at the early stages of a potential compromise or someone's actually now actively extracting information, as may be the case in this example. So I'm not going to do all of them, but I will show you as we talk about security. We can go beyond just abnormal data downloads. We see cases where people are uploading this information to new countries using suspicious protocols, and even, and this is usually at the earlier stage of this chain, but before we got access to a machine with domain credentials, we saw a device that is excessively trying to find hosts on the network and access those hosts. You can see we have insights that look at the entire kill chain and are giving you recommendations without any probes out of band. This is just your single AP, your single switch potentially, or a gateway that can bring this telemetry in. Now, we've talked a lot about all of this really coming into play. We talked about how Central as a platform is going to give you that rich telemetry. So in every screen that you go, when you have a client issue or an app issue, we're automatically picking all of that up. So you don't have to investigate and troubleshoot and dig through a lot of data. And with insights, we're self-driving ready, which means you don't even need to analyze that data anymore. And even before an issue happens, we will analyze that data for you. But with Copilot, and I want to draw your attention to the top right here. So this new icon should be available in your environment if you are an existing Central customer. If you're not a Central customer, what are you waiting for? Because this is unlike anything you will have seen in the past. With Copilot, this is what Miles was talking about, an agentic AI that has specialized agents in things like real-time things like, what is happening with my network. So if I type things like, show me clients with poor experience. So this is a real-time agent that's going to go and see what is the real-time state of agents on my network or endpoints on my network and who is experiencing a poor experience. So again, we did not spend any time today introducing you to the platform and every component and the UI that's different. We don't feel you really need to do that in this day and age, right? You can essentially just roll up all the use cases I've shown you and bring it into Copilot. In this case, you will see it thought for 10 seconds. You can see its reasoning over here. And at the end, it'll tell you that, hey, we have 37 clients across 5 different sites. Imagine doing this manually that are experiencing a poor network experience. Now, what is the next thing I would do? I see a lot of different MAC addresses. So what if I just pick one of them and say, I can see text, but I want to help visualize this. Show me the connectivity path for one of these endpoints. And now you will see that Copilot, which only is similar with Microsoft in name, it is not Microsoft's Copilot. This is This is HPE Networking Copilot. And what it's going to do in this case is it's going to go and not just reason and give me predictive text. It is going to figure out and use central UI components and build the topology for me. It's going to give me the connectivity path in this case, and I can see what this client, this MAC address is connected to upstream. It's connected to this AP, this switch, and you can see where the issue lies. Right, the client is failing because there's a DHCP discover timeout. Now, what I absolutely love about Copilot is you will see a lot of implementations where you'll have the latest and greatest LLM models that are just being retrofit into an existing solution. But this is a domain specialist in networking. So what is the next thing that I would do if it's a client issue or an AP issue? It's going to give me predictive next steps as a network admin would. So it's asking me to check out the connectivity path for this AP that we're connected to. Now, if I click on this, notice it will no longer need to reason, because not only is it giving me suggestions, when it gives me a suggestion, it is automatically reasoning in the backend for me. So that's really cool, right? It's taking me step by step, going from a really global view. I had 30 odd clients with an experience issue. We narrowed it down to which specific client, which specific AP, and now we're looking at telemetry from that specific AP. Really, really amazing. Uh, One of the other agents that we have, right? So we've looked at a few different agents working together in the backend for you. We've looked at agents that look at real-time states and stats. We've looked at topologies, but we haven't really figured out this issue yet, right? Client failures, and it's happening for the reason of DHCP discover timeout. So what if I ask, um, how has tech or support really typically solved for DHCP discover timeout issues? So we're also taking all our tag cases, removing any personally identifiable information, and feeding it so that before you log that tag case, you can actually use Copilot again to see if this is an issue that's widespread. You've seen, or others have seen this in the networking space, and we will be able to call upon this and figure out issues. Right. So this is also really cool. As you can see, we'll start calling on that tag support agent in this case, and we'll be able to reason with that and bring this information. In this case, you can see we've reasoned for a few seconds, and we've seen this issue in other spaces, and it gives you a very conclusive view into what I can do potentially. I'll show you one last thing before we switch. Is I also asked it for throughput trends, because when I saw that DHCP discover timeout, I wanted to see if this is a client specific issue. Are other people able to pass traffic? And I can see that it's again building out another UI element for me. So as we go towards self-driving, you can use Copilot to now start reasoning and taking all that data that we're collecting and bringing it into the same sphere, so that you don't have to learn yet another UI. You don't have to learn different workflows for wired, for wireless, for WAN. You can bring it all and convert them with Copilot. But Miles also talked about one really, really important thing, and that really completes, or really sets us on the way of not just promising self-driving as a future, but also something that we can deliver today and now. Because when you start seeing Copilot in your environments, you will also, instead of just seeing the prompt engine, you will also see agentic mesh actions. And this is the most exciting part as we head towards self-driving. Now, in this case, without any prompting that is required, without any piecing together information, and me being a network domain specialist, Copilot's going to be able to use and basically coordinate all those different agents that are running in the back, but also now give them and make them actionable. In this case, we're seeing some roaming failures that are affecting mobile devices, and it's also giving me the reason why that's happening. So if I click on this, notice no reasoning happens, because this is autonomously happening all the time. It's autonomously finding issues in our networks. It's finding ways to improve our network's performance. And if I click on this, it's going to show me that we've analyzed the roaming stats for this particular SSID. Most of them were successful, but we actually had a significant amount of failed authentications. It figured out which devices are disproportionately responsible for those failed authentications, and figure out what wireless setting is potentially affecting them, right? It figures out all of the potential issues. So we've seen high failures happening across zero devices. And now what I really love is there's an easy fix. We can disable 11R, like I showed you previously, but it will evaluate the impact of disabling 11R on other clients on the network. So there are two potential remediations. Either we can disable 11R, but that impacts all clients, or we can create a new SSID. Let's see how Copilot converged between these two potential solutions. So it gave me the root cause, gave me the recommendation, and now you can see because of the entire demo how this is getting pieced together. And at the end of the day, the recommendation that I've been given is we can just disable 11R. And if you would like to do so, you don't have to go to the configuration screen. You don't have to learn where the 11R is, which profile for which SSID on which AP. We will do it for you. Would you like to disable 11R? And you can do it right now, or you can schedule or make this during a maintenance window. So it evaluated both possible solutions: create a new SSID or disable it on the existing one. And turns out these devices make up the bulk of the clients on this SSID. So disabling it is going to have a net positive on this particular wireless network. So it gives me a recommendation, and I can act on this all from the same place. So when we talk about self-driving, you don't have to learn a new user interface. You don't have to learn how to prompt it. You don't have to learn how to even push out the smallest of needles in a haystack of issues that are affecting a very small client set on one SSID. As you manage a global network, you'll be able to orchestrate all of that and more within the same platform. So we've talked about a lot of different things, but I want to end with one thing. One of the biggest questions that we get at this point is, hey, this all looks amazing. And I'm sure you haven't seen anything close to what we're now delivering with Central. But how do we scale this up? Because a lot of customers have mixed environments. So at this point, the question that I usually get is, this probably only works if you have Aruba networks, correct? Or HPE networks at least. And the answer is no. A lot of the things that we are now building towards is we're starting to treat third-party devices, and we're starting with third-party switches. Notice these are third-party switches, and you can see not only are they third-party, they're significantly old. These are legacy third-party devices. But as customers transition to an HPE network, we know that they're not going to rip and replace this overnight. They need to stagger, they need to stage different pieces of their network. And that's why Central brings that piece that you lost as you worked from a on-prem solution to cloud. A lot of on-prem solutions had that visibility. You lose that going to the cloud. We've brought it back to the cloud. So this is a third-party switch that I can see at every single switch port, what VLAN is configured, what's allowed, what's the consumption look like, what's the throughput at any given switch port. And that is the type of visibility that not only are we adding for a third party, we have now started feeding this to our AI engine, whether it's alerts, insights, or even Copilot. So I want to end with this as a teaser towards the future. The future looks incredibly positive. Whether you are an HPE Aruba networking customer or HPE Mist and a networking customer, you will see this cross-pollination continue, where we will start bringing in the best of both worlds. And there is no doubt in our minds that the future belongs to you guys, and the future belongs to HPE networking as we strive towards that North Star of a self-driving journey or a self-driving network. Now, as we wrap up on our time, I want to do a quick what's next. What can you take away from this section? So you can do a guided tour. Everything that I've shown you is available to you. So that first link, and we will share this with you, and we will send you an email out, and Rama will talk about those details. But you can use this as a guided tour. You can get started with our documentation, read our FAQs, or even submit your innovation requests in our innovation zone. So with that, Rama, I'm going to hand this over to you to bring us home.
Thank you. Thank you, Jihad. Yeah. Thank you all for taking our time to join us today. We appreciate your engagement and hope you find this session valuable. An email will be sent to you with the webinar recording and any relevant resources referenced during the presentation. If you have any additional questions or you would like to continue the conversation, your HPE Aruba networking team would be happy to help you. Thank you once again for your time and hope you had a great rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you guys. Bye.